Mom, are you okay? Mom!
Come with me if you want to live.
Best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
I need the best.
I had the best words.
Well, I'm the best there is.
The best. We the best.
You have a chance to be the best of the best.
You are now listening to Best of the Best, presented by Radar Studios. Starring two guys who use their middle initial to sound cool. Here are your hosts, Neal E. Fischer and Mark P. Smith.
Somebody. Wait, what was the song you were singing?
The
head
something hits me and I'm head over heels on it. Yeah.
You know what I was thinking of when at lunch
What?
we were talking about Karen, our post producer, is pumping for her new baby, and Mark and I were saying
latest baby.
the latest baby, and the latest and greatest baby. Mark and I were talking about how we pump, but we pump up to the song "Pump Up the Jam." So every time the machine is pumping, you just hear, "Oh, I don't even know the words. I just
Get your booty on the floor tonight.
make my day.
Make my day.
Make my day.
All right, that's enough. Do you want to remind everyone about our iTunes reviews and
Yeah.
our giveaway?
So last week we said that we were doing a little bit of a giveaway, and that giveaway is going to be an exclusive Radar Studios T-shirt that is.
Well, it's not exclusive, but
It's exclusive to everyone who'll get it.
yeah, who doesn't have one already?
Correct. Yes. It is it's a Radar Studios T-shirt that is designed by one of our designers, and the way you can win that T-shirt is by putting your name into the raffle mix.
Yeah.
See what I did there? Or on the raffle board.
Oh, okay.
But so basically what we're looking for is as soon as we get to 25 iTunes reviews, we are going to take everyone who wrote an iTunes review and we're going to put their name in a hat, and we will choose a name, and then we will say your name on our the episode following after we get those reviews, and you can feel free to contact us and we'll send you the T-shirt no matter where you are.
Yeah, and if you're embarrassed for any reason, just put a nickname in there.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, if your iTunes handle is like Shady Caterpillar 75, but you don't want to be called that on air, then that's fine. But I feel free. So really, write those reviews. I think we're up to 9 or 10, but we need 25 in order to get this going because those reviews will help us. We know some people have reviewed us on Facebook, which is very helpful. So keep doing that. But in order to win the prize, it will have to be iTunes.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here in a different position than normal. Normally, I have my shoulders kind of up, almost as if I work in the same.
Like Nosferatu.
I'm either like Nosferatu or I work in the same accounting firm as Ebenezer Scrooge, doing all the paperwork of the people that we hate, or those guys in Harry Potter, the elves or the trolls, or I forget what they are. You know what they are?
The banker guys.
The banker guys, yeah. But anyway, I'm sitting in this...
I've never seen the movie, but I've seen that.
You haven't seen any Harry Potter?
Nope.
Come on.
Not into it.
Oh, give me...
My wife loves it. But
really?
Yeah.
Right, Shauna, slap some sense into Mark. These are great movies.
I'm not against it. I just couldn't get into the first one, and everyone's like, well, you got to get to the third one, so before it gets
just
good.
Watch them again.
Yeah.
Just, they're always on what is now called Freeform. It used to be ABC Family, but now they play those all the time, like back to back. But my point I was going to make, I'm in a different position today, and it's a little more Cashmere Pulaski. I'm feeling pretty good, leaning back. I'm not stressing out. My shoulders are loose. I'm ready to go.
You got your top button undone on your shirt.
Top button is undone.
Got a little breeze.
Little pants tent going on. But I'm pretty excited about today's episode.
Yeah, me too. We talked about this for when we were coming up with all the show topics we wanted to do. We've been talking about this for a while now. So we decided the time is now. No pun intended. But we're talking about time travel movies or This is actually a genre almost onto itself, if you think about it, because the time travel aspect is the main element in the in the film. So when you think about a movie, you think about how it's told. Most movies are told linearly, where it starts at one point and goes to the future point. This is different. All these movies are a little bit complex in sort of how they treat time. So we thought it'd be interesting to discuss. We were talking, Neil and I, off camera or whatever, off mic,
and off camera, but that's the exclusive thing you have to pay more for.
And we were talking about how there's not many of these time travel movies that don't have some sort of inherent like plot hole or something.
Right. Basically, you could look for a lot of problems in all these movies.
Right.
If you want to get bring it down to brass tacks.
Yeah, and that's the thing about these films. I think these are, like, again, some of our favorites. Some of the do time travel well. Some are just great movies. And all of these have some flaws, which I think some of them are interesting. Some research I did, we can certainly discuss those on some of these. But in the end, it's the script and the characters and everything that keeps you engaged. And, you kind of look over those little minor details. If there are huge time travel plot holes and the movie's not good, then yeah, those are more glaring. And
well, I think one of the conversations that we didn't really touch on that I wanted to wait until we recorded was looking through the many, many lists of time travel movies. There's a lot of different versions of them. I mean, you have your typical time travel movie where there's an actual time machine or some sort of machine that people either go into, press, or use to travel through time. There's other time travel movies, technically speaking, that are like time loops,
right,
where time just loops over on them.
Which we'll talk about.
Yeah, which I suppose is time travel. And then there's other movies that aren't really time travel movies, but they discuss or utilize plot points relating to the bending or manipulating of the space-time continuum.
Right. And
So
I think those are all.
If you think those are all valid
in this conversation,
then
yeah.
I will make sure that my list reflects that.
Well, thanks.
I didn't know where you wanted to be. I don't know if you wanted to just go.
That's the parameters. I think I think if we just narrowed it down to time travel movies, like the sort of meat and potatoes versions of the movies where you use a device to time travel, that's all well and good. But I think exploring those other ideas are, all of that is technically quote unquote time traveling of some sort. So
I think we need to hear the Mick Jagger Rolling Stones song "Time" right now. Cue it. Okay, thanks, Mark. Used to brilliant effect in the film Fallen, starring Denzel Washington.
Time is on my side.
Yes, it is. Oh, you like my song Fallen there, Mark? Oh, no, that's the movie.
So
that's not the song, it's Time. You like my song Time there, Mark? All right? My daughter works for Rema London, Mark. Mick Jagger always sounds like he's about to puke, right? He's about to puke, right? Okay, sorry.
That's so bad.
That is bad.
Thanks for doing it, though.
Oh, I do what I can.
It's
for the small
Neil talked
children.
me off of this. I was going to make a joke and say that my past self was going to show up at this date and time in the recording studio at some point to warn me of something or stop something from happening. And then he kind of told me that was not funny. So
No, look, if time travel gets invented, then you can send a future self back here, but it remains to be seen if it's invented. We'll know by the end, because if it actually was invented, you would make it here by the end of the recording. So
that said, I got to ask you,
okay,
if you had the ability to travel through time, either at any point, forwards, backwards, whatever,
right?
Would you do it? And if so, how would you use it?
First of all, I would go back in time before this podcast started and tell you no. No to
the podcast?
And not do the podcast.
Okay, good.
No. So every time anyone always has that conversation around the coffee table, the water cooler, where they're like, what superpower would you have? And everyone's like, well, I would want the power of flight because I want to fly around and look at things. And other people want teleportation. I always pick time travel because I think that would be a great superpower. I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, and that's all about time travel, being a Time Lord. So I love time travel. I would like to consider myself, if I had that power, I would be like a casual observer of of history because I just
You go back in time?
I would go back in time. I'd go in forwards in time, but I wouldn't change anything. I would just interact if I without changing anything if I could. But I would also.
But isn't the mere idea that you're there means it's changed? Like
but if I was a certain time traveler though, I would somehow figure out a way not to, have the butterfly effect because it's hard to explain. If I knew enough about where I was going, then I wouldn't screw anything up. So first of all, I would probably go back during the golden age of Hollywood on the studios when the studio system was king, and go on the back lots where Gene Kelly and all them were, and doing musicals or what you see in movies where there's Spartans on one side and soldiers on another, and then people in togas or whatever. So I would love to do that, just to kind of see old Hollywood. I'd probably go back to feudal era Japan, where the samurais were, and just kind of watch and see what was going on there.
Hang out with Tom Cruise.
Sake! That's him yelling for sake. But yeah, I would be a casual observer because I what I really would want to do, I love learning about different historical events, but it's just never enough for me. I just want to go there, get a nice lawn chair, maybe a cup of joe.
Do you feel like maybe
bring a French press?
Maybe you would see the truth too?
Well, that's the other thing that interests me is I feel like history books often lie, or they make things more interesting, like revisionist history, make things more interesting than they really were. So I would really like to go back and just see, what different things look like. And I just think that would be fun. And also, Quantum Leap was always one of my favorite shows as a kid. And I just thought the idea of a guy leaping through time into different time periods, different stories, he kind of affected the future. But what was nice about that show is he had a particular goal that he would find out halfway through, which is you have to make sure, Mary gets engaged to Trevor or whatever. And then that was his only job. Kind of a depressing ending, though, which I hate. He never gets to go home. Spoilers. But anyway, I think that'd be fun. What about you? Would you go into the future, go to the past?
I think as tempting as it would be, I have to say, I think I would be too nervous that I would affect something in some way. The idea of seeing history is interesting, but
what if
going to the future especially seems like because you don't know what you're going to see, and if you're going to see your future self, and if you're going to be if you're going to be pleased with what you see or not. And I don't know.
Well, that's the whole.
I think that's kind of the point of a lot of these stories is that fate is more powerful. We got to leave some things up to chance and fate because having that much or thinking we have that much control just really can undo. Because one thing you might be doing something good, but that one good deed might have a ripple effect and then creates chaos some other way. And I would kill Hitler, though. Baby Hitler. I would do that with no qualms.
But but would that change a lot, though, you think? I mean, you never know. But here's the thing,
true.
though. If you could go back and just be, like I was saying, a casual observer, I'm thinking of the Charles Dickens Christmas Carol type time travel where you're there, but no one can see you.
Oh, you're
you know what I mean?
Omnipresent.
Right. You're omnipresent, or you have an invisibility cloak like you would in Harry Potter if you watched it. But
that's different. I wouldn't mind doing that.
That's what I'm saying. I would want to have some sort of invisible. Basically, just imagine going to a kid's soccer game and the parents who have those chairs that have an umbrella attached, but the umbrella is an invisibility cloak.
Yeah. If I could do that, I would go back. I'd probably want to be near Martin Luther King or something. We could be at witness one of the marches or something. That'd be cool.
Well, I think there's just so many historical events that would be fun to.
Or see Abe Lincoln do a speech or something.
That would be cool. Yeah. Not to.
You think you would talk like that guy or whatever, Daniel Day-Lewis, that high voice?
So crazy. A little higher. That's what I heard. They said that's what he sounded like. I would definitely go back to see Frank Sinatra perform. I've always wanted to see that. Shame I didn't get a chance to.
Blue Eyes.
Yeah, Old Blue Eyes. Chairman of the board.
They call me Old Brown Eyes.
Do they?
Actually, Old Hazel Eyes.
You got talent, kid.
So, do you usually I go first and I throw a zinger out there, and you get kind of frustrated with that because I take a zinger or something, something. Not that any of these movies are ours or anything. They're just, our our entries. Do you want to go first in our time travel discussion, or?
Yeah, I mean, I can go first. I don't think I'm going to start with a zinger because I feel like, people are almost like time travelers listening right now. They probably know where we're going to go. So I'm just going to do the opposite of that. You know what I mean?
Okay. This is like, we're going to taper up to it.
Right. So since I'm actually not going to talk a lot about this movie, which is lucky for you, just because I don't want to ruin it for people, one of my favorite time travel movies of all time, and it is an official submission into the mix onto the board.
Ooh.
You will not probably want to put this in the top 5 or top 7, even though I think it deserves to be in the top 5 and 7, but it's tough because with our format, if you haven't seen the movie, it's hard for you to get behind it to put it in the top 7.
It's fine.
But this first movie is a movie that my brother David showed me, and one time he was just like, "Hey, I saw this movie. You really got to watch it." And I was like, "I don't. The poster looks a little weird. I don't know if I want to see it." And he was like, "No, you got to see this movie. It's one of the coolest, movies that I've seen in a while. It's from Spain, and the movie is called Time Crimes." Now, Time Crimes is from 2007. In Spanish, it is Los Cronocrímenes. I don't know if my pronunciation was right.
It's pretty good.
But I'm not going to say anything about this movie. Do not watch the trailer for this movie. Don't look anything up about it on Wikipedia. It's called Time Crimes. It's from 2007. Just go rent it and watch it because I don't want to ruin anything about it. But it is awesome. It's one of the best time travel movies.
Are there crimes that take place over time?
There are some crimes that take place over time. It's not like a huge budgeted movie, so it's a very smartly directed film. I think the budget was about 2.5 million, 2.6 million. I just don't. It's so hard for me to not say anything about this movie. All I will say though is it was made by a really good director. His name is Nacho Vigalondo. Nacho Vigalondo. That's all I'm going to say. So just go watch this movie. I'm not going to say anything about it. And then please tweet us or send an email, whatever. Let us know what you thought of it. Most recently, Nacho released Colossal with Anne Hathaway. If you're familiar with that film, that was kind of a smaller movie that was released with Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis.
That's cool.
But yeah, so look up Time Crimes. I don't think you'll be disappointed, but I really just want you guys to see it. I'm not going to say anything else about it. But that's my first official submission in the mix because I think it deserves to be in the top 7, whether we put it in there or not.
Well, good. Yeah, usually the movies we talk about, we both seen, but and Neil asked me, he's like, "Oh, we haven't seen this one. We should maybe we don't consider it." And I'm like, "Well, if you think it's a great time travel movie and worth putting on the board, we should do it." So,
yeah. So that's my first official submission into the mix.
Well, just great.
What do you got?
Like you, I think it's worth kind of working our way up to some of the bigger titles. Some of the stuff that will probably be more in the
zeitgeist.
Yeah,
popular culture.
One movie that came out not too long ago, a few years ago, is a movie called Safety Not Guaranteed. This is one of my favorite movies about time travel.
Colin Trevorrow.
Trevorrow, yeah, of Jurassic World fame.
Yep.
Yeah, this is an interesting movie. It's about time travel, but it's also about belief and connecting. It's really like a quirky, hipster, whatever. I don't want to say hipster, but it's a love story, and it's like a dramedy basically.
Yeah, I think we were trying to get it's a little bit about faith, like faith in people.
Yeah, And the best part about this movie, and as I talk about it, I'm probably going to spoil it for you. And a lot of these movies we might spoil because we're going to have to stop. We're going to talk about some of their plot points and stuff. But the main character in the movie, played by Mark Duplass, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He basically, the plot is basically he's looking for a companion to travel back in time with him.
Yeah, and here's the notice. Wanted.
Yeah.
Somebody to go back in time with me. This is not a joke. P.O. Box 91, Ocean View, Washington 99393. You'll get paid after we get back. Must bring your own weapons. Safety not guaranteed. I've only done this once before.
So, the other actress, please.
Aubrey Plaza.
Aubrey Plaza, thank you. Aubrey Plaza finds this entry or this newspaper posting, whatever, really interesting. So she convinces her magazine or newspaper she works for to go and interview this guy and find him. And and when she finds him, she's obviously skeptical of him and his mission and all that. And then when she gets to know him, she starts to believe, even though no one else really believes in his mission or the time travel. And I think my favorite part about this movie, or it kind of takes time travel and just spins it around, spins around, because the whole time as an audience, you are also questioning whether this guy is legitimate or not. And his whole mission is to go back in time to save his ex-girlfriend or ex-girlfriend from being hit by a car. And then later on in the movie, you find out that never happened, or she got hit by a car, but she survived, but now they're not together. And, then Aubrey Plaza starts to really be skeptical of, is this real? And then he says, well, I did go back in time and, I stopped her from being killed or whatever. Like, I've already done it. So you're still unbelieved. And then the end comes, and I don't know if I want to spoil it for you, but that's where well, I'll say it because it's not worth mentioning. If basically you're disbelieved the whole time, and then he builds this contraption that floats on a water that looks like a bunch of just metal, like and wires, screwed together. And then turns out when the FBI, who's also looking for him, come and encounter him, he gets this thing to work, and he disappears, and you have no idea if he went into the future, if he time traveled or anything. So that's the best part about this movie, because you're really you're almost giving up on this guy, because you're like, this guy's a kook at this point. Like, there's nothing that's proven to be true, and you're kind of disbelieving. And then in the end, they kind of leave it unopen whether he actually travels in time or not. They don't show him back in the past or whatever, but he definitely makes a machine and he disappears. And that's kind of the best part about that film, I think.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great film. Mark Duplass does a really good job in his role. You have a nice couple little turns from Mary Lynn Ricekub, who is in charge of the magazine that gives Aubrey Plaza the go-ahead to do the article. Jeff Garland's in it, who's always funny. And then Jake Johnson, who I'm a huge fan of. He's on New Girl. He plays Nick, also a Chicago native. He's just I don't know. He's just so entertaining on screen. He's someone that you want to watch and you feel comfortable with watching. But yeah, no, the ending is great. Fun little side story. Steven Spielberg saw this movie, and the reason that he hired Colin Trevorrow to do Jurassic World was because of just the ending of this movie.
Oh, I could see that.
Yeah, just because of where it went in
Right.
the ending. And after he saw the ending, he called him up. And that's how he got the job.
It's pretty amazing he made a jump from this movie to Jurassic World, though.
It's a huge jump, because this movie had a budget that was reported of $750,000.
Yeah.
And then he goes on to direct, hundreds of millions of dollars for another movie.
The director of photography for this movie, and I'm trying to remember his name. Oh yeah, Benjamin Kalsuke. I can't remember his name. He actually shot a promo piece I did for Nico Case, and I got to meet him. He came in Radar, so there you go.
Oh, that's the same DP?
Same DP, yeah. Yeah, the guy with the
that's
wild
cool.
hair.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fun movie. So just one little random thing, I suppose, on the ending. Do you think there's a possibility that you can interpret that ending as, okay, he did time travel, he was right, it's real? So that's one, which I believe is the ending. I think that is the intention. Could you also interpret that whatever machine he built just vaporized them and they're dead? And it's just kind of depressing because you'll never see them again. I guess it's more hopeful than that. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think
because that wasn't a line in the movie.
Well, I don't even think that Well, I don't think about the fact that he time traveled. I actually just think about the fact that Aubrey, he had connected with someone that actually saw him and accepted him for who he was, for all his quirks and foibles, and I think that's kind of the point for me. And I
me too.
think that's But I do think it gives him credibility that you at least have to ponder whether or not he actually traveled through time. And then you have to actually think, did he actually travel through time when he said he did before to help save his girlfriend? So that's the best part about that movie, I think. It's not wrapped up and, leaves you thinking. So
Yeah, no, I enjoyed that movie.
and it's funny. I mean, that's the one thing, too. It's a funny movie on top of all that. Everyone in that movie is like deadpan and really, really, really funny. So
Well, yeah, everyone plays it straight, I think, which is great. So, yeah, do you want me to do some honorable mentions or just go
Sure.
right into another submission? Because I'll do whatever
you
want.
think.
I'll do whatever you want. I told you I'm in a cash position today. I'm feeling good. I'll do whatever you want. Not pre-migraine.
throw up some honorable me's, bro.
All right, so we'll throw out some honorable mentions here.
Some honorable chins.
I hope these aren't on your list, but for me, they're honorable mentions, so we'll see. One that I think many people haven't seen, and I haven't seen in a while, but I think it's just an awesome concept. They kind of ruined it with a TV series that I don't think is still on. But there's a movie from 1979 by Nicholas Meyer called Time After Time. You ever seen that one?
No.
So
I've heard the song.
Yeah, so listen to this little pitch here. H.G. Wells pursues Jack the Ripper to the 20th century when the serial murderer uses the
that sounds
future
familiar.
writer's time machine to escape his time period.
That sounds familiar to me.
Yeah, so basically it's just H.G. Wells is chasing Jack the Ripper in the future, and at that point it was the 70s, but yeah, you got Malcolm McDowell as H.G. Wells, and then David Warner as Jack the Ripper, and then a nice little role from Mary Steenburgen. Let's see, another honorable mention here. It's going to be kind of a little two or threefold here. There's one that has a very interesting concept. It's called The Final Countdown. It's from 1980. Basically, the gist of this movie is a modern aircraft carrier, the USS Nimitz, is thrown back in time through a vortex to 1941, just hours before Pearl Harbor happens. So what's really cool about this movie is it basically poses the question, if you had the world's most advanced military and aircraft carrier and it was transported back to right before Pearl Harbor, do you just destroy the entire Japanese fleet, or do you let history proceed as it does? Kind of like what you just said with the Hitler thing earlier. So it's a really great movie. It's kind of corny because it's from the 80s, but you got Martin Sheen, Kirk Douglas, Charles Durning, and then basically the opposite of that plot is a film called The Philadelphia Experiment, which was released 4 years later, which is a Navy destroyer tries this experiment to become invisible and sends the ships into the future. So it's just the opposite story, but it's not as good as The Final Countdown. And then the last little honorable mention, a Francis Ford Coppola joint called Peggy Sue Got Married.
Oh, right.
From 1986. So that one's Kathleen Turner. You have a nice young Jim Carrey in there and Nicolas Cage. It's kind of a storyline that I think a lot of people connected with. It's just about this girl, Peggy Sue, who faints at her high school reunion. And when she wakes up, she finds herself back in high school, trying to see if she can change how high school was for her because she wasn't so happy about it. So I thought that was kind of an interesting film. So for my next official submission, let's see how big am I going to go here. All right, yeah, you know what? Let's see. I did.
Just so you know, Neil's got 8 pieces of paper in front of him.
It's large type, so that my eyes feel nice. So my next official submission, I think I'm going to go a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to reel it back. This film won one of the many Oscars that Woody Allen won, and it was recent. It was in 2011. A movie that I saw that I immediately fell in love with, that completely surprised me. I was just kind of going into it thinking of it as just sort of an easygoing movie that I would watch on an afternoon, enjoy it, and then if it was on TV, one other time,
You fell in love with it,
maybe I would watch it.
like Woody Allen did his adopted daughter. Is that what you're saying? That kind of
probably
love?
probably not fallen that far in love.
Okay.
But it is Midnight in Paris with Owen Wilson and Rachel McAdams. Oh wow!
Wow, I'm back in time.
Marion Cotillard, and I just love this movie. He plays a writer who is obsessed with the 1920s, and as he's going for a walk at night in beautiful Paris, a car pulls up with Marion Cotillard, and basically just transports him to the 1920s around the corner. He gets to meet F. Scott Fitzgerald. He gets to meet Ernest Hemingway. ends up falling in love with Marion Cotillard, someone from the past. And I just thought it was beautifully done. Darius Kanji was the DP, and it looks gorgeous. You have Owen Wilson doing things, saying things like, wow, Paris in the rain is beautiful. And just so many great performances. I mean, everyone gets to, play someone who is a real person. Corey Stoll is the person who plays Ernest Hemingway, and then you have Tom Hiddleston playing F. Scott Fitzgerald. Michael Sheen is really good in it. He kind of plays a dick, and then you have Adrian Brody as well. So anyway, just a great movie. It's kind of like a feel-good movie. It's one that I love watching when it's on TV. It's just sort of a movie about, finding yourself, him kind of figuring out what he wants to do with his life, and that doing what he loves. And as we said earlier, not technically a time machine that he gets into, but he goes to the same specific spot in Paris that allows him to transport back into time, sort of like a portal. So definitely, I think, counts as a time travel movie, and I'm a big fan of this one.
I've seen bits and pieces on TV. Is the so the place he goes to is a specific year he's in, and all these people were around in that era, or is it that the place he goes to just happens to have multiple era writer, is that, or am I, what I'm saying?
Well, so basically what happens is Owen Wilson gets drunk, and he kind of gets lost in Paris, like on the streets. And then this 1920s car pulls up beside him, and everyone's like, "Hey, do you need a ride?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And then he doesn't realize until right away that it's Cole Porter and Zelda and Scott Fitzgerald and all of them. And so he basically meets them at a bar, and then he kind of basically goes on a bar crawl with all these famous people that he loves. And he just keeps going back to that same spot, and that car always pulls up pretty much at the same time. And then he gets in, and
so the car is almost like
I suppose so. Yeah, I guess the car is kind of like that.
And no one sees these people, only he.
Well, what do you mean? Oh, you mean no one else sees the car?
Yeah, I mean, like, they pull up, pick him up.
Yeah, no one else is ever really around.
Yeah.
But one thing that it also does that I thought was interesting is he travels back to the 20s, and then the woman he's falling in love with, like him, is obsessed with an era before her era, which was the 1890s, and it has this great sort of philosophical, I guess, statement, if you will, that, everyone kind of I was going to say everyone fondles the past. everyone is fond of
nostalgic
nostalgia, right?
Yeah,
of a previous era, and so it doesn't matter what time period you're in. Everyone's going to say, "Oh, I loved the fashion of the 50s. I wish we had that." Or if you're in the 50s, "Oh, I loved how they dressed as flappers in the 20s." So it was just a great way to make a statement about that.
It's how we recycle.
Yeah,
trends every 20 years, whatever.
But yeah, no, it's a really great film. I definitely recommend it. It's one of, if not maybe the most accessible Woody Allen film. I know a lot of people don't like some of his writing style. They might find it too neurotic or too the comedy just like a little too old fashioned. But this one is very, very accessible. The story is very clear cut, and the time travel element I think really makes it accessible.
I have not seen this movie. I should see it. I have a little bit of thing against Woody Allen, but that's for another podcast.
Got to separate the artist and the art.
I know. I know this is a debate.
Because if we went into every artist closet, there'd be skeletons.
I know, and that's a debate I have.
Just like I know that there are in yours, because I traveled to the future and saw the dead bodies in there. So I'm glad that I submitted 2 films you have not seen.
Yeah.
And I feel like a jackass.
No. This is great. I mean,
I'm out of here.
I'm not. Yeah.
I'm done. I'm gonna refrain from being in my casual position right now.
So I have some honorable mentions I'll throw out there too,
Okay.
because I definitely have a lot more movies that
we have a lot to get through.
I consider to be put on the board. So I'm gonna just throw them out there real quickly because I think they're worth a mention, like we do all the time. So. Great movie from the 80s, Flight of the Navigator, directed by Randall Kleiser.
Yep.
I watched this movie on repeat because I think I recorded it. It was like on the Wonderful World of Disney on Saturday nights or whatever. And I recorded it and I watched it a million times. I love this movie as a kid. I hope they remake it. It's a perfect kid movie if they can do it right.
It is a good kid movie. It was on my honorable mention as well. Paul Rubens, isn't there? It's the voice of Max.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, I was thinking of like.
Sorry, Pee Wee Herman.
That's a fun fact I totally forgot. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then another great 80s movie about time travel, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Ooh.
I know.
Just glossing over that one.
Sorry,
All right.
No, it's fine. If you want to throw it on the board, we can have that debate.
Fine.
It was on the teetering edge, but there were so many other movies.
There are a lot.
But yeah, directed by Stephen Herrick. They use a phone booth as a device, which is something that Neal and I have been talking about recently about a project Neal's working on. Where
Safety not guaranteed, though.
Where we possibly will have a phone booth device of some sort. So we've been referencing this movie, and it's a funny movie. And I think the premise of this movie of these guys going back and learning like what they're trying to learn in high school, but like actually seeing it in real life, like you were saying, it's pretty funny. Start of Keanu's, career.
Yeah, I think it's great. A lot of great little aspects of this, like, getting to see Napoleon and Socrates, as Bill and Ted call him. Yeah, I did have this one on my normal list of like 8 to 10 movies just because it's so fun. But I see what you're saying, though. I mean, it is a fun movie from the end of the 80s.
It might be a bench player. Who knows?
It could be a bench player,
but
you never know. It depends what they show us in practice.
Another one I'll mention, Army of Darkness, the sequel to Evil Dead with Sam Raimi.
Yep.
I'm not going to go too much further into that.
That was my first entrance into the Evil Dead series, because I know the other ones had been out, but that was the first one I actually saw.
I watched Evil Dead in college because I didn't watch a lot of horror movies growing up, and and because of the movies were already out, I watched, and a friend of mine who was in film school with me was a huge Sam Raimi fan, so we actually started with Evil Dead. I've seen that one first.
Well, I love his line, about the S-Smart, shop S-Smart. Right. And the other thing about the Evil Dead franchise is especially in Army of Darkness, is the phrase Klaatu Barada Nikto, which is from The Day the Earth Stood Still, that they stole from that. It's a little reference to that.
Nice, fun fact.
Yeah, from Gort.
You got a lot of fun facts today.
I told you I'm in that cash position.
Thanks, Neal.
Cash money. Okay.
So
going.
2 more I'll mention too. One, Hot Tub Time Machine, directed by Steve Pink.
Also on my honorable mention list.
And if you didn't know, the time machine is the actual hot tub. Very funny movie. I haven't seen the second one. I wasn't sure.
I don't even know if I want to, honestly.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that one.
I like the first one.
The first one, the premise is just funny, and I think you got a great cast.
I thought it was quite enjoyable.
Yeah.
For what it was. I'm not saying it was a great movie.
And it harkens back to some of those 80s movies, and when they go back in time to the 80s, they really, amplify that conceit as well. So funny movie, it's worth watching. And then Donnie Darko, directed by Richard Kelly. Mm-hmm. Technically, this is kind of on the outskirts of a time travel movie because it's a little bit ambiguous. It's a little bit weird. No, it's weird for sure. But there's a little bit. Worn out places.
Worn out places. Patrick Swayze.
And the dreams in which I'm dying. So this movie is, it's a little bit bizarre. Yeah, you're right. Swayze. We can't do an episode without putting Swayze in there. He's been in everything.
Yes.
He's great in this movie. But this movie definitely launched Gyllenhaal as a main, as a mainstay, a main actor. He does travel in time. It's a little unclear. Even I watched it a million times, like how that actually happens. And
it is a little it's a little tough to describe.
So that's why I was like, well, this is kind of on the outskirts, because it's mostly a lot of these movies we're talking about are time travel centric. This is not that. The theme isn't necessarily time travel, but although it's part of the plot. But I thought it's worth a mention. You should definitely watch it if you haven't seen it. Great soundtrack as well. And then the next one, officially, I'm going to put on the board.
Oh, I will say before we do that, Donnie Darko, it's kind of crazy too. If we're talking about time, we're talking about time travel. That movie really, it did become a cult favorite, but it did not become a commercially successful film, ironically, because of timing. Because that film was released about a week after 9/11, and the opening of the film has a jet engine falling on his house.
Right.
So it really rubbed
forgot
people.
about that.
Yeah,
You're
it
right.
rubbed people the wrong way, and I think that really hurt its chances of succeeding. And it did become a cult classic. Richard Kelly did do a director's cut that came out. I forget how many years later, I always find that fact interesting. That I wonder if it was released in a different time. Here's another. I mean, this is the whole time travel paradox that we're talking about. If it was released at a different time, would it have even become commercially successful?
Right.
Or do you kind of just
Without the controversy.
right without the controversy, or do you just kind of leave it where it was released because now it I think stands the test of time as a cult film and maybe will be remembered even more fondly.
Right.
So I don't know. Things to think about in your car.
A lot of what ifs, but that's worth a watch for sure. I totally forgot about that release.
Full of fun facts.
I'm gonna throw this on the board. Planet of the Apes. I think this is 1968.
This is the Tim Burton.
No. The original Planet of the Apes with Charlton Heston, directed by Don Taylor. I believe this is a 1968 release. If you haven't seen Planet of the Apes and you really want to see Planet of the Apes, you should probably not listen to what I'm going to tell you next.
Yeah, there's a
because-
lot of spoilers coming out here. Are you talking about? Sorry, continue.
Oh,
Planet of the Apes, 1968. You were
Yeah.
right on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was thinking of the novel. Was 1963.
so Planet of the Apes. Essentially, if you haven't seen it, I don't know. I would probably skip through what we're talking about. Maybe skip this whole episode because we're gonna the part of the time travel discussion involves key plot points. So, but if you have seen it, it's a classic, and just as a a reminder, the astronauts, including Charlton Heston, crash land on a planet, and a planet that is dominated basically like apes, like as if they're
Right, by a
humans.
species of like walking and talking
And they
apes.
and they're smart and they talk and they are the
You smart.
they are the top of the food chain.
Yep.
And there's a lot more to the movie than that, but basically, like, the conceit is at the end of the film, they reveal that the astronauts believe that they have crash landed on a different planet.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the film, they actually have traveled through some sort of space, like a wormhole of some type, and they've gone into a weird future where apes have taken over Earth. So they never actually left. They left Earth. They're in space, but they actually crash landed back on Earth in a different era where apes ruled the world. And that's the cool ending of the movie, where Charlton Heston escapes the apes, and all of a sudden you see this big, what exactly happens? Does he get in the spaceship and leave? I can't remember because I'm confusing now with the Mark Wahlberg, the terrible Tim Burton version. But
No. So basically, Charlton Heston is like walking across the shoreline. I think we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like one of the most iconic endings ever. I think a great twist ending. And he sees the remains of the Statue of Liberty, which reveals that they're actually on Earth, and
Right.
it was like after a nuclear war.
it's like half buried in the. It's like almost all the way buried, and you just see the arm and the little bit of the head sticking out.
Yeah.
It's such a cool ending, and I'm glad that it was never spoiled for me as a kid, because when I saw it, I was like, "Whoa!" I love those kind of movies when you watch the whole movie and you're on one path, and all of a sudden, like, the last 5 minutes of it puts you on, like, changes your whole thinking, where then you're thinking back to the movie now and trying to understand clues and stuff. And there was something, as I was doing my notes on this film, because I was trying to, like, again, parse out my memory of the Planet of the Apes, not only the sequels, but the remakes that have been made. And let me tell you, the newest ones, The Rise of the Planet of the Apes, are really, really fantastic movies, and
They are really good.
They're definitely a different, more of a prequel, to what happens in the Charlton Heston version. But there was a couple things I saw online that I definitely agree with, that I think is funny, and this is just kind of pointing out one of these kind of, maybe it's nitpicky, but pointing out sort of the time travel flaw, or the inherent flaws in the time travel movie. And there's a note I made here that says, despite being scientists and trained astronauts, the presence of a near-Earth atmospheric conditions and human or human-like beings never seem to puzzle the crew. If anything, the yellow star around which the planet orbits, i.e. the sun, and the probable visibility of a single moon, and would have indicated that they were on Earth, either in the future or the distant past. Finally, that the apes are shown riding horses, using saddles, bridles, and stirrups, and using firearms, both of which were inventions from various civilizations on Earth, should have made it abundantly clear that the group was on Earth the entire time. And that, to me, is kind of an interesting thing I didn't really think of until I was doing my notes, which is like basically the criticism and what I've read on a lot of different sites online is that people are, if these guys were smart, if they were so smart that they were astronauts, they would have at least questioned at some point if they were, maybe they weren't thinking time continuum, but they would have thought like, maybe we're on Earth, or this is a very Earth-like place. You know, the fact that they had considered an entirely different planet is what this criticism is all about, which I can kind of understand it.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it hurts the ending because that's the best part of the movie, but
right. I
that's
think
kind of your suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, you just kind of have to gloss over that.
But it's one of those things that I think is really fascinating about the time travel genre and people's, people are much more quick to criticize these kinds of movies, I feel like, for that aspect, which I think is like, it's fascinating. Some of it's kind of unwarranted, some of it's interesting. So, yeah, Planet of the Apes, it's a classic movie.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the ending is one of the most iconic of all time, especially when you see Charlton Heston fall to his knees. The newest Planet of the Apes film, which is the last in the newest trilogy, is maybe not the last, I don't know, but it's the third chapter. It's called War for the Planet of the Apes. And I'm just pretty excited because one of my friends, Alex Ponovic, is in this film. He's a great actor, really, really nice dude. And he's actually playing one of the main apes. And I'm just super excited that he got this role, that they're getting exposed to his talent. He's playing an ape called Winter. If you look in the trailer, he's the albino ape. He's like a really big, muscular albino ape.
The gorilla.
Yeah, the gorilla. And Alex is a big guy himself. And maybe I'll ask him to come on. Maybe we can have him talk about the experience working on the film, because I think that'd be really interesting.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So
and one more thing I'll say real quick, I just thought of too. Planet of the Apes is interesting because the ending reveals the time travel. It's not the main plot of the film. Like other movies we're going to talk about coming up. You know what I mean? Where like you're getting in, like you're doing a thing. The plot is sort of forwarded by the fact that you're either going in time or back, where we don't know that as the audience until the end of this movie, and that's interesting because then you think about everything before that, and if you rewatch it, knowing that, it makes the movie different, and that's interesting. So,
no, I think you're right on. Do you want me to do some honorable mentions, or am I just? I guess you did too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have. I'm sure you have a lot on your list there that are.
I do have a lot on my list, and I feel like all I do is put movies in here that you haven't seen that are not going to get into the finals. So this episode
maybe you
is
throw a zinger up there, dude.
I might throw a zinger out there. Yep. All right, a few more honorable mentions. I wasn't sure if you were going to put this one on there. Maybe you will, just like you did with Bill and Ted. Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, directed by Leonard Nimoy.
Not on my list, so
okay.
Thanks.
So Star Trek IV. This one's kind of fun because the crew of the Enterprise actually come to Earth, and they come to Earth to save it basically from an alien species, and the only way they can save Earth is by finding the only beings on Earth that can communicate with these aliens, which are humpback whales. So it's kind of an absurd premise. They're in San Francisco in the 80s, which is just kind of a funny premise there. But that one's kind of a fun honorable mention. My next honorable mention is let's see. You know what? Let's see. This is tough. Oh yeah, here. So my other honorable mention is La Jetée. It's not a feature film. It's a French short film. If you like French New Wave, you're definitely going to like this one. It's from 1962.
Oh, a short film.
It's a short film. It's a 30-minute short film.
We didn't discuss this.
Well, that's why it's an honorable mention.
Okay.
It's a 30-minute short film that you can find on YouTube. and it's basically a time travel story told only through still images, if you can kind of figure that out. So it's very interesting. It's very French New Wave. I think Criterion actually did a full Blu-ray release of this. Another honorable mention is the anime The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. It's kind of a nice one. Shout out to my friend Ken, who I'm sure has seen that. And then my last honorable mention, this is kind of killing me too. I don't know if I should mention this one because you might want to put this in on the board. You know what? I'm just going to skip it. All right, my next official submission. I don't know if I should go big or go home. You know what? I am.
Don't go home.
Don't go home. So I'm going to talk about
me talking about myself.
I'm going to talk about a movie that I think is the pinnacle of time travel films. It came out the year I was born. Now, you're a little older than me, so you're probably a few years old when you saw this movie. But this film, I just don't think there's a better movie about time travel. And I see this movie on TV. I watch it. A friend wants to watch it. I'll sit through the entire thing. This movie never gets old. The performances never get old. The script is awesome. Anyone can argue any sort of time plot holes if they want, but
Weekend at Bernie's.
There is no better time travel movie than Back to the Future.
Ooh.
You got Marty McFly. You got Michael J. Fox in the career of his role. In the role of his career. A lot of people might know that Eric Stoltz had the job before him for about 2 weeks, and then Spielberg and Zemeckis said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Stoltz, you're not cutting it." So they hired Michael J. Fox and reshot. Christopher Lloyd in the career of his role. I'm just gonna stick with it. The role of his career as well. And then the
guy that plays Biff.
Yeah, and so
how many movies has that guy been in?
Well, he's actually been in quite a bit. And speaking of him, before we even go over the plot, the fact that the actor who played Biff, and his name is Tom Wilson. What's really cool about him is he's a stand-up comic as well and a songwriter and actually just an artist in general. But if you ever look him up, he does this really great song, and I forget the title of it. I'm going to look it up right now. But he basically does a song about all the questions that people ask him every day of his life for being Biff in Back to the Future. Now, he isn't bitter about being back in Back to the Future. He loved it. He had a lot of fun, as you'll hear him say. But the song is just, it's great. So basically, like a paraphrase version of it, he goes, it's like a tune in the background. He says, "Is Michael J. Fox nice? Yes, Michael J. Fox is nice. Did you have fun making the movie? Yes, I had fun making the movie." And it's just every single actual question that he gets asked on a daily basis in song form. So definitely look that up. It's really, really funny. But yeah, he's had some nice little side roles here. But Back to the Future, I don't know what else you can say about this movie.
Now, are we talking about the first one, or are you throwing the trilogy in there? Because it kind of is like a long movie.
It is. It's tough. I mean, here's what I'll say, and I'm probably gonna step on your toes a little bit, but
please.
This is tough. Really, the first Back to the Future is the best time travel movie of all time. The second one is good. I actually like the third one. I know a lot of people hate it, but I think I'm just submitting the first one. But another movie that I'm sure we're going to talk about is a little tougher because the first one's actually really good too, and the second one is better. But it's kind of a toss up of which one you want to talk about. But Back to the Future, not much you can say about this movie other than it's one of the most technologically advanced films that came out in the 80s. It really revolutionized and furthered technology. Robert Zemeckis has always been really great at that, and we talked about him on Forrest Gump on the 1994 films, that he took technology to a new level by incorporating it. Controversial.
No, what I said. Sorry.
Exactly. That he took technology and fit it into a movie in a way where it wasn't too on the nose, and it fit in the storyline really well. And the one thing I will say about this movie, it has like the coolest time machine of all time. I mean, the DeLorean going 88 miles per hour.
I agree with you.
I just don't know how you can have anything better than that.
It's such a cool car. I mean, it's terrible on gas mileage. It's made of like stainless steel, or what is that? What it is? Or something like that. It's like it's like super. Maybe? Well, most cars are made of aluminum. This is like, it's something else. It's super heavy, and apparently it's terrible on gas. And it's like, whatever.
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're going to see
right.
some serious shit.
That's good. But you're right. This is the best, in my opinion, the best time travel device in all of cinema for sure. I mean,
It's so iconic.
yeah, it's cool.
Just the fact, like, just the whole story of this is so cool. Just to break it down for you, if you haven't seen it, which if you haven't, please press pause, go watch it, and then come back. The fact that
Watch the whole trilogy. It's fun to watch back to back.
yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They are fun to watch back to back. Just the fact that he goes back to the 50s and is getting hit on by his mom.
Yeah.
And I just all the thing about this movie and all these movies really, and what the second movie does brilliantly.
And takes his mom to the dance.
Takes his mom to the
they
dance.
Almost make out, and
Yeah, and there's that great scene where he spits out the liquor when they actually put liquor in there. And
Right.
he didn't drink, so it made him react that way. The thing about this movie that I think probably really just takes it up a notch and makes it the pinnacle of time travel movies is they really figured out every little detail you could possibly think of.
yeah.
Just the little touches here and there. Like when he wakes up, she thinks his name's Calvin because his underwear says Calvin Klein. When he goes back in time, like the way like the punch that George McFly, his dad, has to give Biff in order for her to fall in love with him and go to the dance and kiss.
In order for Marty McFly to exist.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then that whole scene of him playing guitar and I think they're playing Blue Moon. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And his sister and brother are disappearing.
Right.
And they're in the. I mean, there's just so I could go on all day about like the little things, like when he's at his grandpa's house and he looks and there's the kid in the he's like, oh, behind, that's our Joey, like behind bars, and he's like, better get used to it, kid. There's just so much.
Marvin Berry's a good part.
Marvin Berry's a
Yeah.
great part.
Yeah.
You know, and my other favorite thing that my friends and I always do is they go, he's going to be mayor one day. Mayor?
Goldie Wilson.
Goldie Wilson. I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Mayor. I love doing that. But yeah, I'm not going to say anything else about this movie. I'll let you talk. But
No.
Doc Brown, Marty McFly, no one better. No time machine, no time travel movie better. Bar none. So go ahead.
So I'm gonna be a stickler a little bit. I love this movie. Don't get me wrong. This is great. And I you know, it's funny. I would consider the trilogy more of a long movie because I don't like the third one as much, but I consider it part of the story. You know, I don't. It would be like me separating like the third act of a movie that I really like because I don't. You know what I mean? So two things I love about this movie, and I'm thinking of all three now. I'm sorry. Is
we can include it as a trilogy if you want.
I'm just to discuss it. I mean,
But here's the thing, though. If we're going to do a trilogy, that means we have to include Terminator 3 with Terminator 1 and
no,
2.
we're not doing that.
Okay, we'll just do 1 and 2
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
All right, fine. We'll do 1, 2, and 3 Back to the Future as 1. Go ahead.
It doesn't have to be. I guess I'll just make some points about. I love how Hill Valley looks in all the different eras. That's like my favorite part when they show like the wide shot of you see the courthouse, you see the whole thing, and you see that in the 50s, you see that in the 80s, you see it in 2015, and you also see it in 1885. And that is like, for some reason, I just love that, like seeing that town, you know, as it's changed over the years, and it's like a reflection of, you know, the characters themselves too, in terms of, you know, what they, you know, how they've changed. And here's one thing though, and I've had this problem with this movie, and this is again another weird time travel paradox.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, anyone else out there, you can tweet at me, tweet at us, whatever.
We'll tweet
Yeah.
at Mark because
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm not going to agree with it. But
In the third movie,
okay,
they go back to 1885, the Old West.
right.
Doc Brown has to. In the second movie, he gets electrocuted in the storm, and the flux or the time machine accidentally sends him to 1885. He sends a letter to the future at that exact same time to Marty McFly in the 50s, and Marty McFly reads it and he goes, "Hey, I'm in the Old West. Don't come looking for me. I'm happy. You know, I'm doing my thing in the Old West."
Right.
Then Marty McFly finds the 50s version of Doc Brown to help him get the DeLorean to get back to 1885 to save Doc Brown from being killed by Mad Dog Tannen, which is like Biff Tannen's ancestor, you know, whatever, great-great-grandfather, what do you want to say? Here's the thing, though. Wouldn't the version of Doc Brown that goes to 1885 know that he's gonna be killed by Biff Tannen because you know what I'm saying? Like, wouldn't he know that already in the 50s? And wouldn't he just avoid? You know, like he would know that. You know what I'm saying? Am I thinking of that wrong, or do you have a problem with what I'm saying?
No, I just don't understand it. Would Doc Brown even know that he would be going back to 1885 in the 50s unless he knew exactly that he was going to get electrocuted and get sent there, though?
Well, here's the thing. So, like, okay, let's just quickly do this real quick. Doc Brown of the 80s goes back in time with Marty McFly, right? Mm-hmm. In the first movie. And in the end of the second movie, we'll skip forward here. They go in the future, but they also go back to the 50s because they have to stop Biff from using the sports almanac that creates a huge ripple it makes an alternate 80s sort of Donald Trump version of Hill Valley. So in the end of the second movie, you got Marty McFly and you got Doc Brown. In the 50s, they've accomplished their mission. They're going back to the 80s thinking that everything's going to be done. They've corrected their mistake. The 80s, as they know, will be done. They're going to destroy the DeLorean. But then the machine flips to 1885, accidentally gets put back to 1885.
Right.
Right? So supposedly he does not know in 1885 that he's going to get killed. Marty McFly, this is like so convoluted. Marty McFly finds out that he is going to get killed by Biff Tannen, meaning that his whole another thing that will rip the space-time continuum and will have some sort of crazy consequences. So he finds the 50s version of Doc Brown to help him go back to the West to save him and bring him back to the 80s. But wouldn't he know that past has already happened? You know what I'm saying? Like if he's already in the 80s, he would have already been killed. So I don't know.
Is this from the Den of Geek article?
No. This is something that I read that other people had the same
problem. Oh, yeah. I think a guy on Reddit brought this up.
But this is something that I thought about.
So this is what I will say.
Which would make the whole third one null, and actually almost everything null. But again, I love this trilogy. This is not like this movie sucks or anything. I just think it's interesting to think about.
No, I think there's a lot of interesting things to think about there. We are only talking about the first one. So he went on that tirade for no reason. But I know what you're saying, though. It is interesting. But I also think, some people look into things just a little bit too much. But I think Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, though, did as good a job as anyone could have with the timelines and whatnot, at least of the first two. I know the third one, is argued on a lot, but yeah, no, that is
and
interesting.
They came close to predicting the Cubs World Series.
They were
off by a year.
1 year off. That's pretty insane. A lot of things they predicted. That,
and some people argue because of the lockout, and there was a full season of baseball that did not get played in the 90s.
Oh, that
technically would have been correct.
Oh, that's true.
Like if there was no lockout in baseball and every team had won, the same subsequent teams had won
right
a year previous, basically.
Yeah, so, I could buy that. One of my favorite lines too, before I let you go on, is he goes like,
"Sorry, I ruined your Back to the Future entry with my."
No, that's fine. Just tweet at Mark. Hashtag. I don't know. Nobody cares.
Go fuck yourself.
Hashtag BTTF3 tirade. No, one of my favorite lines is. Where Marty's like, "Man, Doc, that's heavy," and then he's like, "Heavy? What's with this word heavy? Is there something wrong with the Earth's gravitational pull?" I just think it's really funny.
Stupid.
Okay, so Back to the Future. Obviously,
I mean, you can do 3 episodes on this movie. By itself.
We could, we could probably do it. So. Honestly, we could probably do an entire podcast on Back to the Future.
And after that, we'll do Everyman episode.
Yeah, we still need to do the Everyman episode. Yeah. You're right. Maybe Michael J. Fox, would he be? I don't
think so.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. He's not really an everyman.
Yeah.
I mean, he's great, but he's not everyman. All right. So, what's your next official submission? I suppose
I'm gonna go hot.
Okay, I know where you're going. Go ahead.
This is a clue.
Glad it wasn't Donnie Darko. Dum 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 dum. You gotta remember the guitar. Come with me if you want to live.
Anyway, yes, I don't want to talk about the trilogy of Terminator. I want to talk about Terminator 2 because I do enjoy Terminator 1.
Terminator 1 is a very solid film.
Solid film,
underrated.
yeah, for sure.
But 2 is the best.
And James Cameron's second film, I believe. Was it Piranha 2, the first one? I think he directed not all of it, though. I believe Terminator 1 was his first film, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, you're talking about as a director?
Yeah.
Well, no, wait, you're putting Terminator 1 or are you putting...
His second film.
Okay.
That he directed, I think, technically. But anyway, T2, this is a fantastic film. It still holds up.
Mm-hmm.
The effects in it at the time were groundbreaking.
Yep.
Perfectly used, I think, too. Like... the effects they learned on The Abyss, they basically applied to this film, making the liquid metal T-1000.
Robert Patrick, yep.
It's a classic Arnold movie for sure. What I love about this movie, and I think what makes you appreciate Terminator 1 is, in Terminator 1, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the T-800, is sent back in time. So let me give you a little bit of plot if you haven't seen it. Again, spoilers if you haven't. There is a sort of AI resistance that wipes out the humans in the future, and the human leader is John Connor, a man named John Connor, who leads the resistance against the robots and the AI. Skynet, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And his mom, played by Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor, is in the first movie. She has to be protected. Because the bad people, the AI, Skynet, sends a T-800, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, a robotic skeleton of a man, back in time to kill her, to assassinate her. The good guys send back their own guy named Reese.
Yep, Kyle Reese, portrayed by Michael Biehn.
Classic 80s star, to protect her. And then ultimately, if I'm right, if I'm not mistaken, Kyle Reese impregnates her with John Connor. Is that right? Is that the regular timeline?
Yes, because so the Terminator, is sent back in time to kill John Connor's mom so that he'll never be born.
Right.
And then they send back Kyle Reese to protect her, and that's the part
that gets a little hairy when you think of the timeline, because you think of the fact that like they send back someone even though she wasn't even like pregnant with him yet, but this guy goes back to get her pregnant. So it's that. Anyway, what I'm getting at is Terminator 2. What I love about Terminator 2 is they send back a more advanced robot 11 years later, the T-1000, the liquid metal Terminator, played by Robert Patrick, to kill John Connor, played by Edward Furlong. But what I love is that they send Arnold's character, the T-800, the good guys actually send him, Terminator, back in time to protect John Connor and to stop the T-1000 from killing him, so that the future goes on as planned.
Right, it was a brilliant move on making him a good guy in the second one.
Yes, and that's the point I'm getting to. Is like when Sarah Connor, who's in a mental facility because everyone thinks she's crazy, that Judgment Day is coming and whatever. I love her character transition too. From the first movie, she's this like kind of frail, like, can't help herself woman,
right, damsel in distress.
Yeah. The second movie, she's like, built, buff, and badass. She's like
built, buff, and badass.
Built,
Triple
buff,
B.
Yeah, Triple B. But no, so she immediately thinks the T-800 is coming back to kill them, but then she learns he has been sent back to protect them.
Right, I think he's reprogrammed.
Yeah. Exactly, and they carry out a mission to destroy any technology that has been confiscated, that will eventually lead scientists to create basically Skynet, and will create this Judgment Day. T2 is excellent, and there are some flaws in the time travel experience. The one thing that always got to me, and again, this is going to be a stupid nitpicky thing, I think that you guys are going to hate me saying, I'm sure, but fuck you, it doesn't matter, is at the end of the movie, again, spoilers, they take out the T-1000, Terminator helps kill the T-1000. They also destroy the Skynet building, or what is it called? It's not called Skynet at the time, though, right? It's called Cyberdyne or something like that. Cyberdyne
well,
Systems
I'm a cybernetic organism.
But it's not called Skynet yet. It's another organization that like has the arm and the chip or whatever. You know what I mean? In the wall or whatever. And that's how they create. Right. Yeah, that's what the technology leads to.
Cyberdyne.
So they destroy that. They destroy T-1000, and in the end, the T-800 Terminator, Arnold says, "You got to destroy me too. Any evidence of me left what could lead to the same result. So you got to destroy me too. It's only got to be you two left, Sarah Connor and her son John." Mm-hmm. But do you remember his arm gets ripped off in that machine?
Right.
And they never like go and get the arm and destroy it. And I always thought, like, if they were going to be so careful and go through all that stuff, why didn't... Maybe they do. Maybe we were supposed to believe they did or something. But they never showed that in the movie, and I think that's kind of a weird... kind of leaves it open for, like... You know what I mean? Like, it seems like they were so careful to, like... You know, and they go on through this harrowing, situation... after trying to be killed by the T-1000 and stuff, that they get him, and then they have that sad scene where they lower Arnold into the lava or whatever with the sweet thumbs up.
Because the thumbs. That's one of my favorite gifs of all time.
But anyway, that aside, I love this movie. A great soundtrack too, honestly, with the Guns N' Roses and.
That's right. Well, I think
super super great. Like there's a fantastic bunch of chase scenes in this movie too. That one where they do where they have where T-1000 is driving that semi truck and he's chasing after John Connor on the bike, and then Arnold's on the bike, and I love that they dress him. He's like so badass in that movie, and the first place he goes to, the closest place that he can get clothes at is that biker bar, and he's like, "I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle," and. But anyway, this is a great film. Sorry if I spoiled it, but you should have seen Terminator 2 by now. So
no, you have. Yeah, you have to. I think what you said real quickly before we move on. What this movie did, just like Back to the Future, was revolutionary as far as the effects were concerned in the blending of practical effects and digital effects. And this was, 91. There really was a renaissance there between 91 and 93 of Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park of blending both of those disciplines. And one of my favorite things from the film that I do with my friends all the time, especially if someone gets burned really bad, is we do the Miles Dyson death breathing. It goes, boom, boom. That's one of my favorite gifs of all time. If you just look up
my buddy, the Veal Chop on Twitter, he says we used to go. What does he say? 1 more barrel, 2 more minutes, when they're like setting all the charges or whatever.
There's a great YouTube video called Miles Dyson breathing for 15 minutes. It's just a loop of him going.
But what about that part though? Really quickly, when they go to Miles Dyson's home, mm-hmm. and they basically like terrorize his family because they.
That's true. Yeah.
But they are sitting around that table and they basically they show him what T-800 is, and he like cuts his skin off of his, and he pulls his skin off of his arm. I just thought that was like such a cool part.
Another thing that's kind of fun about Miles Dyson, one of the last times I was in New York, I was eating at a restaurant called Mamma Mia. You can find it on Google, Mamma Mia 44 Southwest.
After seeing Mamma Mia on Broadway.
Yeah, correct. It's a great family restaurant. It's been around for 40, 50 years. And anyway, so I was eating on the sidewalk at Mamma Mia. It's in Hell's Kitchen, right around a few blocks away from Broadway. We're going to go see a show. And who do I see come walk towards us with a script in his hand? Joe Morton, who played Miles Dyson.
Nice.
And I couldn't get out of my seat because I was kind of blocked in. And I swear, I just wanted to go up to him and be like, "Hey, can I just do a quick video of you and I both doing the Dyson breathing?" And I don't know if he would have, but that would have been just the best video ever. Terminator 2. If we did a best sequels episode, I don't know if this is going to take it out of contention now that we're mentioning it now, but it definitely would be in the top 5 of best sequels of all time. I feel like this is one of those movies where the sequel is better than the original.
Yeah, I agree.
Great pick. Another few honorable mentions here. Timecop, featuring Jean-Claude Van Damme. directed by one of Mark's favorites, Peter Hyams from Running Scared. That one, nothing really to explain there. You have Jean-Claude Van Damme as a policeman who patrols time, basically.
Sweet split in this one.
He does a great split in his kitchen, sort of under the cloak of night and moonlight. There is a sex scene with Mia Sara from Ferris Bueller's Day Off where it's mostly Jean-Claude Van Damme ass cheek. If you like that sort of thing.
He's got good buns, for sure.
He has some. He does have some good. He shouldn't be the muscles from Brussels. He should be, like the buns from something. The buns.
The buns of Navarone.
The buns of Navarone. And then Ron Silver in a spoilerific great death when he is covered in liquid nitrogen and is shattered to pieces. Just kind of, actually very similar to
T-1000.
Terminator 2, which I'm sure is
People
where
love that liquid nitrogen.
Yeah, I'm sure that's where they got it from too. It's 3 years after that. Another honorable mention, because I know you're not going to put this one here, and I like it though. About Time. It's kind of a romantic dramedy comedy. It's directed by Richard Curtis, who did Love Actually, which I love, but young actor who's getting a lot of roles now. Domhnall Gleeson is in it with Rachel McAdams, and then a great performance by Bill Nighy as his dad. And basically, Domhnall Gleeson turns 21. He discovers he can time travel and change what happens and has happened in his life. And it's just kind of like a nice little movie. A few other quick ones. Meet the Robinsons, Disney movie. A little bit of a time travel plot there. I definitely like that one. I think it has a lot of great commentaries on adoption and just love in general. I remember I saw that with a group of students before, and I thought it has a really good message to it. And before I do this other honorable mention later, I'm just going to go with another one here. This one's kind of a weird pick. I know a lot of people are going to be like, I'm surprised Neal said this one. It's technically kind of like a time travel movie.
I'm not sure if they're going to be surprised at all.
I don't know. We'll see, though. But this film was from 2000. It sort of flew under the radar. It's not a perfect movie by any means, but it does star someone who will be in our Top 5 Everyman episode. It's called Frequency, and it's with Dennis Quaid, Jim Caviezel, and Andre Braugher. I just really like this movie. It's... the basic story of it is Jim Caviezel is this hard-nosed like NYPD detective, and he finds this old ham radio that his dad used to play around with, and his dad had died in a fire in the 60s, and he was like this really cool dad, and he really looked up to him, and he finds this ham radio, and when the Northern Lights are kind of, I guess, at their strongest point, this ham radio serves as a almost like an audio portal into the past before his dad dies. So he's talking to his father in a way that he never could before his father died. Kind of a cool guy movie. I know we talk about those a lot. It's definitely about a love between a son and a father. And Dennis Quaid has a really cool role. He basically, what I really love I love serial killer movies. I love detective stories. This one is Jim Caviezel is basically chasing after, I think it's the Nightingale killer in this movie, this serial killer. And he there's no headway on it. The guy escaped. No one ever caught him. And but he was most prevalent in the 60s when his dad was young. So he uses the radio and he uses his dad as basically a physical representation of his own detective skills to go and find the Nightingale killer, because, plot point here, the Nightingale killer, after this whole time-space continuum opened up, is going to kill his mom. So everything changes there. You've ever seen this movie?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
So I love this movie. I think it's kind of underrated. It's just kind of a feel-good movie. Toby Emmerich's in it. Just a lot of great performances. Just like a fun one. It's not serious, but it's a fun one.
It's funny because it's not technically time travel, but it is time altering, which I think, it's like, I think in our context is on the outskirts of that, but it's definitely, part of what we're talking about here in terms of like, changing fate and changing history. And,
right. There's a lot of making decisions that will change the future.
Right.
In this movie.
Interesting. I didn't think about that movie.
Yeah.
Are you putting that on the board, do you think? Or
yeah, I'm going to put that on the board.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if we're going to put time loop movies on there, I'm going to put that one on there.
So we are, we're going to, I'm going to hurry this up a little bit because, honestly, we could do 8 hours on.
Yep. I have two more that I could put on the board.
Movies. So I don't, I don't want to want you guys to listen to an 8-hour podcast. So, Let me see.
By the way, our executive producer, Graham, put a sign on our window behind us that says, "What year is it?" #BOTB. Obviously, it's 2015, so I don't know why he's doing that.
2017.
What? It's 2015.
Wait, what year is what?
What year is it now?
No, it's 2017.
I don't know. My watch says 2015. Whoa. No, I'm just kidding.
Should I spin my top? So this movie could I'm going to mention it real quick because I think it's worth mentioning, but it's a complex film, and I don't think it takes more than 5 minutes in a podcast.
Oh, I know which one you're going to do, yeah.
I'm going to put in the consideration.
Does it have to do with paint?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
But the movie is Interstellar.
Oh, okay.
Directed by Chris Nolan. This is similar to the conceit in Planet of the Apes a little bit, where you're using sort of space to go back to speak to someone in the future about making decisions or whatever, to warn somebody. It's a complex movie. It's worth watching. I wanted to put it out there. It's a hard movie to talk about, just because one, I've seen it twice and I don't think I fully understand
Right.
the complex time travel aspect of it. But it's got Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway. Mm-hmm. Neil's better with actors. That's why I'm pointing to him.
Oh, yeah. Casey
Michael
Affleck,
Caine.
Michael Caine. Yep.
But it's a terrific score. Neil hates this film, but
I don't hate
think
it,
it's
but I
worth-
have many problems with it.
There are some issues with it. There are some issues that I have with it. Matt Damon's in it too, by the way. Mm-hmm. But I think it's worth a watch, and it deals with time travel. It deals with family. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, I think it was a cool scene too when Christopher Nolan had Matt Damon grow potatoes on the planet.
And then won Best Comedy.
Yeah. No, the cinematography is good. I'm not going to go into detail of what problems I have with this movie. I saw it once in 70 millimeter. The way Christopher Nolan intended it, and if he intended his sound to be mixed incorrectly, then I guess that's on him. But
it is loud.
It's loud.
The
So
music's loud.
here are my top 5 reasons I don't agree with this movie. I could talk about it in detail more. I want to watch it again though. I'm not one of those guys that has an opinion and doesn't want to evolve and change. So first, I'm going to go very quickly through these, so I'm not trying to shed over them or go over them lightly. But first one is Christopher Nolan, I heard, liked that the sound mix, some parts were much, much louder than the dialogue, and you couldn't hear the dialogue. I didn't like that because I want to hear the dialogue. So that annoyed me in the 70 millimeter print, at least. I haven't seen any other versions. The other one is I think Casey Affleck was, and his role of the brother was severely underutilized in the story. He was such an important part, as from what it seemed in the beginning of the film, and then they kind of just forgot him for the rest of the movie and his storyline, which he was sort of bitter about the world ending and his dad leaving. Third thing that I didn't really enjoy about it. You have this spaceship full of the world's greatest scientists that they're sending on these missions. That is Anne Hathaway included, and she's I think if I remember correctly, the sole female on the ship. And Jonathan Nolan, Christopher Nolan wrote her as a smart scientist who all she does is cry about her husband, who she doesn't have anymore, and she's supposed to be one of our scientists, and they couldn't just give her a strong female role. They'd have her cry about a guy. Fourth thing I don't like about it is I'm just naming these quickly. Fourth thing I don't like about it: Matthew McConaughey, the whole movie, searching to find his daughter, the love of his life. They have the strongest bond in this film, which I liked. He's searching the entire movie to find his daughter. Spoilers if you haven't seen it, just fast forward 30 seconds. He finds his daughter at the end. After this whole entire movie, we're waiting for him to find his daughter. She's old. I get it. She has some other people with her. He spends maybe a minute with her, and he says, "Go find Anne Hathaway, that girl that I don't know, but you fell in love with her after a little bit of time, and she's alone on a planet crying." So that really bugged me. I was waiting this whole movie for him to reunite with his daughter, and immediately she just goes, "I'm old now. I'm about to die. You can leave. I know go fall in love," or whatever. That I had a couple issues with, and I'm sure there's other things, but looked great. Great performances. I have to rewatch it, but those initially, when I saw the 70 millimeter cut, those were my problems with it. That's all I'll say.
Well, thanks. That was actually not even an entry on the board. That was just me throwing.
Well, that's what you get for going on a tirade about Back to the Future 3. And so I'm just going to rip on Interstellar.
So, okay, I'm going to go through a couple quick, and I think we should definitely consider them on the board.
All right, let's go quick. We're going to go rapid fire.
All right, so I'm going to talk about a time loop movie that I love. And maybe Neal will follow up with the other one.
Okay, that's I was
not the other one. Like there's only two, but
the other time loop.
Two on my list.
Two time loops on my list as well.
One, Groundhog Day, directed by Harold Ramis,
classic,
starring Bill Murray. It might be Burrow. I gotta say,
it might be Burrow Movie's his best movie. I don't know about Bill Murray. But Burrow Murray. That's probably his best movie. He plays the groundhog.
I would probably put in Bill Murray. Probably top 5.
For sure.
At very least top 10.
It's the Bill Murray show, the whole movie.
Yeah. What I love about this movie is, so the conceit is Bill Murray is a weatherman, a big city weatherman who goes to Punxsutawney to cover the Groundhog Day event that happens every year. And he's conceited, self-centered. He only cares about himself.
Right.
And he has to experience through some sort of magic. He basically experiences the same day every day until he basically learns his he doesn't understand why the day keeps looping, but basically it's so that he can get his life right, that he can make better choices as a human being, and that's kind of the moral of the story. And it's really, really funny because they use this sort of like we said, time loop. It's not necessarily it's a day he's experienced, but he's experiencing it every day. He's not really necessarily going to the future or the past, but he's already done this day. So every time he does a new, the same situation occurs, he makes a choice. Sometimes it's bad, and then ultimately he starts making better choices. And he's hilarious in the movie.
He's great.
It's directed by Harold Ramis. If I didn't say that already, I think I did. It's one of the things I was doing my research that I was kind of struck by is I was reading some experts and critics have claimed that this movie actually takes place over 10 years.
Oh, I have a total here,
which I think is kind of wild, and I didn't really think about that.
Isn't that insane to think about?
But that said, none of the filmmakers or anyone that's involved with the movie has actually ever confirmed that or anything. But that was just people's thinking about the movie.
I think it's a great movie,
hilarious movie. I love the premise, and worth
I think
a watch,
the premise is something too that wouldn't it be kind of interesting if you did have to live every day over? I mean, once he stops being frustrated, he learns piano. He does all these things that he's never done before because he has the time.
Right.
So I kind of think, even though it's sort of a blessing and a curse, that you would want to do it to kind of fulfill your life during that day and just do everything that you wanted to. So I thought that was great. Love the use of the song "I Got You, Babe" by Sonny and Cher, which is sort of the one you hear every day. Yeah. One of my favorite performances in this film is an actor who I love in every single thing he does. I think he is. Some people call him a character actor. I just like to call him an actor. I just think he's great. Is Stephen Tobolowsky. He plays Ned Ryerson in this film. He's the guy in the film who he always goes up to Bill Murray. He goes, Phil?
Yeah.
Phil Connors?
Watch that step. It's a doozy. Whatever.
Stephen Tobolowsky is so good. He's amazing
in
Silicon Valley. Yeah, he's amazing on Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And he's just one of those guys when you see him.
Great voice too.
Great voice. Yeah. He's really good in Memento. He's great in Deadwood. He was great on Glee, Californication. I mean, the guy's pedigree and list of films that he's been in is just awesome. He actually does a podcast called The Tobolowsky Files that is really good. You guys should check out. Yeah, so great actor. But yeah, this film, just the concept, like you said, is great. I'm not the biggest Andie MacDowell fan, but she works really well in this film. It's probably her best film.
Yeah, she's a great opposition to Bill Murray.
Yeah, she is.
And she helps him
change and
become a better person.
I believe they filmed this in Woodstock, Illinois, small town.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and it just became a Broadway musical.
You know who has an early appearance in this movie?
Who's that?
Michael Shannon.
Really?
He's like a teen. He's like a
Fred the Groom,
older teen in this movie.
That's hilarious.
I think it might have been his first film appearance.
That makes sense. I mean, he runs a theater here in Chicago. And it's pretty cool. I kind of want to see the Broadway musical. It was just nominated for a few Tonys.
I didn't know there was one.
Yeah, it's on Broadway right now, which I am really curious to see how Fun fact. I'm curious to see how they adapt it to a musical. So the other version of this concept of the time loop that Mark was referring to is a film that I think I was just so pleasantly surprised by this film when I saw it. It's basically
Weekend at Bernie's.
It's Weekend at Bernie's.
Not Weekend at Bernie's? Oh.
No.
Okay.
It is, if you were doing an elevator pitch, it would be basically Tom Cruise's Groundhog Day in the future. Or
an action version.
Of Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
So it's called Edge of Tomorrow. It was made in 2014, and it was directed...
A.K.A. Live, Die, Repeat.
A.K.A. Live, Die, Repeat. A.K.A. All You Need Is Kill. So it was based on the...
There's two AKAs?
Yeah.
Oh, the original one. Okay.
Yeah, so the original novel was called All You Need Is Kill by Hiroshi Sakurazaka. And so the film, though, was directed by Doug Liman. It was co-written by Christopher McQuarrie, who has directed...
Usual Suspects fame.
Yep, Usual Suspects has done the
written Usual Suspects.
Last Mission Impossible and the current one they're filming now. And then a great performance by Emily Blunt, R.I.P. Bill Paxton. He gives a great performance in this movie.
One of his last roles.
Yeah. Brendan Gleeson is good in this movie. When I saw this movie, I didn't think it was going to be that great, and it completely surpassed any expectations I had.
The marketing for this was great because I feel like you didn't know what you were getting into. Like, it was like, oh, this is going to be a solid Tom Cruise movie, action movie. Yeah. I had no idea there was the whole, like, I don't remember. Maybe I just didn't pay attention to the trailer. I don't know. That's why I love this movie, because it was, like you said, a complete surprise. So
no, it was a surprise, and Mark and I both share an affinity for Tom Cruise, and I think what this movie did, which he hadn't done up until this point in quite some time, maybe other than a little bit of Magnolia and some other films, is he really got to like do some comedic work.
Yeah,
because the whole premise is
it's funnier than you think it would be.
Yeah, it's a lot funnier than you think it would be. Just like Groundhog Day, you need to have Bill Murray played a lot of things straight, but he's a great comedian as well. Tom Cruise actually got to flesh out some of his comedic chops. So really cool movie. Definitely recommend it. The battle scenes are really, really well done, and the aliens and or robots, I forget what they are, they're really kind of interesting and scary. So yeah, that one's an official submission from us.
That's a good time loop.
Yeah, good time loop film. Before we go and deliberate, did you have any others? Because there's two that I didn't mention that I can just... I know a lot of people are going to be angry about these just being mentioned quickly, but...
There's two that I have. They may be the same, too.
It's probably the same. Sure. You go first, and if it's the same one, I'll go with the other one.
I think this is worth mentioning and maybe putting in the top 5. I'm not sure. It's a movie called Looper, directed by Rian Johnson. Mm-hmm. And... this might be, honestly, it's a shame I didn't get to this earlier, but for time's sake, this might be one of the best time travel movies I've ever seen. Like, I really, really enjoyed this film. I didn't think I'd get over the whole, like, weird nose thing that they gave.
I was having trouble with that.
That they gave, thank you for the name.
Joseph
Gordon-Levitt, to look like his younger version of himself, which is Bruce Willis, who plays the older version. But this is not perfect, but it's a great time travel movie in terms of exploring that conceit of once you do something in the past, how does it affect the future, and also backwards too. Like, what is, I love that this was a science fiction film, but it didn't look like Blade Runner or Aliens or something. It took place like, a lot of the movie took place like on a Kansas farm, but even though it was the future, it would look like how it is now. Like, they didn't, like, it was kind of like there's parts of Minority Report that are the same thing. It's like in the near future where there's a lot of like settings that are similar to how we experience things now, but it was but then you would also all of a sudden see like something flying, or like a flying vehicle or something. But you should watch this movie. It's another thing that would take a long time to kind of get into. There are some sort of minor plot holes, I think, like when they do make the time travel a bit complex when you get into the film. But I think Rian Johnson's a terrific director. I'm excited
for Last Jedi.
Yeah, I'm excited for anything he does, obviously including The Last Jedi. I love Brick. I love the
Brothers Bloom.
Brothers Bloom. Thank you.
I do want to rewatch this.
I just think it was a great take on time travel. So
I want to rewatch it because when I saw it, I wasn't a big fan of it. I thought the makeup on Joseph Gordon-Levitt was just a little too much.
And I thought that too, but I got over it quickly, and I was surprised. So anyway.
Yeah, I got to rewatch it. All I really remember about this movie was one of my favorite parts when the guy goes through the loop or whatever, and he just appears and immediately gets shotgunned.
Right.
So that was kind of cool. But yeah, I'll have to rewatch this one just because I didn't like it when it first came out. Apparently, there's a free audio commentary by Ryan Johnson on SoundCloud, and he puts a warning there that says, needless to say, this is not to be listened to on a first viewing or before you've seen the film. So I'm really interested to maybe rewatch it and then watch it again with the commentary. So two of the other ones real quick before we end here. I don't know if these are on Mark's list, but one of them is from 2004. It's called Primer. It was a film made on a $7,000 budget by Shane Carruth.
Too.
You had that?
Yeah.
So
this is an excellent film.
Yeah, it's a great film. It's a tough one though because when you recommend it to people, it's
great.
It's very dense.
Indie. It's a only movie on this list I think that's like more of an indie time travel movie, which I think time travel a lot of times requires a lot more effects or budget to make a film. They did this really simply. So.
Yeah, and it actually won the Grand Jury Prize at Sundance in 2004. It sort of has a cult following. Shane Carruth is sort of known for making these. I don't want to say experimental, but his films are. It's tough to explain. So he's done Primer. He did Upstream Color. And he did The Modern Ocean as one that was announced. But anyway, Primer, it's very, very indie. It was made for $7,000. It's about two engineers who are building a time machine in their garage. Very kind of reminiscent, I would think, like to the photos of like Steve Jobs and Wozniak and Bill Gates and all of them making computers in their garages. So yeah, it's a great movie. It is
a lot of watching too. I mean, a lot of multiple views. I think.
Yes,
it's very complex.
It's a complex movie. It's very, very dense. You might not like it. It's you have to remember too that it was made for $7,000 and it's a lot of dialogue. It may look cheaper than maybe what you're expecting, but it's definitely worth a watch. And then the last one I'm just going to throw in here real quick that I know some people are going to say we glossed over, but like we always say, we're trying to keep this down to a certain amount of time. But 1981, Terry Gilliam's Time Bandits.
Oh, yeah.
So you have Sean Connery, John Cleese, Shelley Duvall, kind of a fun adventure movie. A young boy, joins a band of time-traveling dwarves as they jump from era to era looking for treasure. I believe this was Terry Gilliam's second film, and another one of his films about time travel. And I don't know if you're going to say the other one, but
no, actually
12 Monkeys.
12 Monkeys. Yeah, I thought about 12 Monkeys. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I couldn't remember exactly all the time travel aspects of it. But definitely worth a watch as a movie itself. But Terry Gilliam's a great director. Really directs like some really, I would say, with lack of a better term, bizarre movies. But Time Bandits is actually one of my really good friends' like favorite movie of all time. So it's definitely worth a watch. It's definitely worth a mention. I think we've covered a lot of time traveling movies here.
We've covered quite a bit.
And some comedies, the time loop movies, the Terminator 2's Back to the Future. So this deliberation will be tough as they usually are.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. If we missed any, please make sure to tweet at us or send us a message on Facebook, comment on Facebook, Instagram. Just send them in. We just want to hear your opinion as well. But we're going to go deliberate right now, and we will be right back.
And now it's time to announce the best of the best.
All right, and we're back.
We're back.
We deliberated. Again, we're sweaty. Neal punched me a couple of times, but we've come to a decision. This was a tough one. We didn't cover every time travel movie. There is a bunch that we didn't get to discuss.
We had a few pages of other ones, like Christopher Reeve, Somewhere in Time, and just
Butterfly Effect.
So many, Lake House.
Yeah.
So many movies. And we know that we may have missed some of yours that you find to be your favorites. 12 Monkeys. So yeah, let us know.
But yeah, so in our bench spots, or our Ron Harper and Tony Kukoc.
No, Steve Kerr, Tony Kukoc.
Steve Kerr, Tony Kukoc. We're gonna get this right one time. In our 7 and 6 spots, we have at number 7 Time Crimes. I have not seen this movie, but I am excited to see it, given Neal's affinity for it and his description of the movie. It's on a lot of good publications lists as a top 10 time travel movie too. So I'm excited to see it. So we would definitely want to include it in the list. Unfortunately, since I have not seen it, for a best of the best recommendation, it wasn't.
It couldn't be an official recommendation.
So, but I wanted to put it in there. And number 6, we kind of glossed over this a little bit, but in the end, when we had our discussion, we thought this deserved to have its day in the sun, and that's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It's one of the few comedies we've talked about, and one of the only comedies on this list. And it's a funny movie. Like we said, Keanu Reeves is one of his earlier films, and it's worth a watch, especially if you love the 80s. So,
Number 5.
Planet of the Apes. This is a 1968 version, the one with Charlton Heston, the original. Like I said, it's if you haven't seen it and you already heard us, we spoiled the ending for you, so sorry. But if you have seen it, I think you'll agree that the ending is one of the greatest endings of all time, and it's the reveal that the movie does take place in a different time and not a different planet. So
take your paws off me, you damn dirty ape.
So we think it's a solid place at number 5.
Number 4.
Groundhog Day. We talked about Groundhog Day and Edge of Tomorrow sort of being our 2 time loop movies. So we had a kind of a hard time picking between these, but Groundhog Day is much more of a classic. It's been around a lot longer. It's stood the test of time. So we lean towards Groundhog Day, but they're almost there as a pair. But officially in the final list, it will be Groundhog Day, starring Bill Murray, directed by Harold Ramis. Great performances by Andy McDowell, and as we said, Stephen Tobolowsky, who's always great, putting in an awesome performance. This film is really inventive. It's got a great script. One of the best scripts maybe in the last 25 years as far as the way it was written and just all the inventive ways that Bill Murray has to kill himself when he's getting depressed. So, Groundhog Day now on Broadway. So go check it out if you want to see how they adapted it.
Number 3.
Primer. This movie, like Neal said, made for $7,000. The only kind of independent time travel movie we have on the list. We thought it deserved a place in the top 3 because it's an excellent film. Also, the script is great. These 2 guys creating a box basically that sends them back in time or sends them into the future. It's a complex film. It deserves multiple watching because they have a lot of timelines that they work in this movie that get altered due to some of their selfish behavior. But it's for $7,000, they did a hell of a job on this movie, and it's a really great telling of time travel, and doesn't require a lot of the big special effects and other kind of fancy things that a lot of movies on this list kind of rely on. So Primer, number 3, definitely check it out.
Number 2.
Terminator 2 at number 2, ironically. This movie will also probably pop into our best sequels movie show that we'll cover at some point. But there's nothing really more we can add to this movie that we haven't discussed already. If you haven't seen this, definitely watch this movie. Start with Terminator 1, then watch Terminator 2. The rest of the Terminators kind of ruin the timeline, in my opinion. These ones are the best. And actually Terminator 2, in my opinion, is actually better than Terminator 1. But the 2 of them kind of paired together as a really interesting duo of movies to watch. So Terminator 2 at number 2, solid film.
At number 1, the best of the best is
Back to the Future. No question here for me that this film is the best time travel movie of all time. Mark and I, we had a long deliberation, but it was pretty clear that this one was firmly in at number 1. It is the number 1 film for time travel movies on many, many different lists as well. We didn't want to try to shake the boat or rock the boat and make a different decision just to be cool, because it's hard to ignore this film. Not much else we can say about it. If you've seen the movie, you probably love the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, it's one you really need to check out. Marty McFly, played by Michael J. Fox, is just a great character to follow around, wearing his life preserver, just like I do sometimes at work, and people ask me if I've jumped ship. But great cast, great effects, memorable movie, great score by Alan Silvestri. This is just, it's the benchmark for time travel movies. I don't know what else I can say about it, Mark.
Yeah, there's nothing much much more I can add to that. I would say definitely consider, if you haven't seen any of these films, I would start with the first one, watch number 2 and 3, and like I said, I kind of consider them all one long film because they all tie into each other. But as far as time travel movies go and the conceit of time travel, this it covers all the bases. So yeah, definitely number 1. But yeah, if you guys have any suggestions for us in terms of time travel movies, if there's something that you think you disagree with, or if we didn't include anything that we talked about, please let us know. The movie guy will tell you all of our handles. And also a fun note, we just changed our logo and our look. So you might have seen that updated if you follow us on various iTunes or wherever, or see us on Facebook and Instagram. You'll see a new logo. So don't freak out. But that's going to be our logo, hopefully, for a while until we.
Yeah, it's a really cool logo. Thanks to Mark for that. Make sure to send in your iTunes reviews to get into that number, that top 25 reviews that we'll pull a name from to give a Radar Studios T-shirt. We're going to be launching a new website pretty soon, which is going to be great. And lastly, if there's any show topics that you think you'd like to hear us discuss and break down into a best of the best list, just send us an email, thebestofthebestpod@gmail.com, and in the subject line put show topic, and we'd love to hear what you want to hear us talk about. But please, I know that the movie trailer guy is going to talk about going on social media, reviewing, all that other stuff. But if you can, if you're listening to this right now and we're in your ears, all we're asking you to do is find someone, whether you know them or not, and just say, hey, I like this podcast. Maybe you should check it out. That's all we want you to do, is just tell one other person, and hopefully they'll tell someone, and they'll tell someone. And kind of build our fan base here from all the people that are currently writing in and being supportive. We just want to have a bigger audience, even bigger than we have now. So thank you to all those people, and spread the word.
Cool. Thanks for listening, guys.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
Thanks for listening. If you think we've missed any of your favorites, message us on Twitter and Instagram using the handle @bestofbestpod and include your own top 5 by using the hashtag BOTB. We ask that you rate, review, and subscribe to Best of the Best on iTunes or your preferred podcast app. Have ideas for show topics, opinions, or just want to say hello? Send us an email to bestofthebestpod@gmail.com. Till next time, special thanks to Radar Studios and long live Don Hogue.